I never expected my proudest day to taste like cold fries in a parking lot. As I sat in the driver's seat of my old Honda Civic, the smell of lukewarm burgers and greasy fries filled the cramped space. Through the windshield, I watched families gathered outside Maplewood High School's gymnasium, their laughter drifting across the warm Vancouver evening air. Mothers clutched bouquets of fresh flowers, siblings chased each other across the lawn, and fathers snapped pictures on their phones trying to capture the moment from every angle. My graduation cap and gown lay in a messy heap on the passenger seat, the tassel dangling over the edge like an afterthought. The diploma, the proof of every sleepless night and every exhausted morning, sat unopened on my lap, the embossed seal glinting under the streetlight. 3 years ago, I would have laughed if you told me I'd even make it here. Back when my mom's addiction swallowed our house whole, when my dad packed up and left for Edmonton without a word, and when I crashed on friends' couches, wondering if I'd survive another school year. But here I was, 18 years old, a survivor, a graduate. And yet sitting alone in the corner of the school parking lot, watching other kids wrapped in the arms of their families, it all felt hollow. The sharp rap on my window startled me so badly I nearly choked on a fry. I whipped around to see Principal Mark Peterson smiling down at me, still dressed in his flowing academic robes. His usual sleek suit was traded tonight for the black and gold of the school colors, and his silver hair caught the soft glow of the streetlight. Rolling down the window, I forced a smile. "Hi, Principal Peterson. Mind if I join you for a moment?" he asked, warmth in his voice. Before I could say a word, he circled the car and opened the passenger door. I scrambled, shoving the cap, gown, and the fast food wrappers into the back seat. "Sorry about the mess," I mumbled, cheeks burning. Peterson chuckled softly as he folded himself into the seat. "I've seen worse. You should see the teacher's lounge fridge on a Friday afternoon." For a few seconds, silence stretched between us. I could still hear the cheers and camera clicks from the gym entrance. It should have been my moment too. "I noticed you weren't at the reception," he said finally, his gaze fixed out the windshield. "Wasn't really in the mood," I murmured, poking at the cold fries. "I get it," he said quietly. "I spent my own graduation hiding in the library. My parents picked that day to have one of their biggest fights, made the whole proud family moment feel pointless." I glanced at him, surprised. I'd always seen Mark Peterson as untouchable, polished speeches. Perfect handshakes, the man every parent trusted. Hearing this vulnerability from him felt like a crack in the image. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, hesitant. He turned his blue eyes, meeting mine. "Because I see you, Liam. What you've done juggling night shifts. Keeping a 3.8 GPA that takes guts. It's easy for people to cheer for the winners when the confetti's falling, but they don't always see the fight that came before." My throat tightened. I fumbled for words, but all that came out was, "It's not a big deal. Other kids have it worse. That doesn't make what you've accomplished any less remarkable." He said softly, "When I saw your name on the graduating list, I made sure to watch for you." The knot in my chest twisted tighter. He reached into his robe and handed me a white envelope. "We were going to give this to you at the reception, but since you're here..." Inside was a card covered in signatures, teacher, staff, even the cafeteria ladies. "Congratulations, Liam. We're so proud of you. You're going to do amazing things." And paper clipped to it a check, a small scholarship enough to cover the cost of my first semester books. "It's not much," Peterson said, "but we wanted to help fill in the gaps." I swallowed hard, blinking fast. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," he smiled gently. "Just promise me you'll use it well." He pushed open the door, stepping out into the cool night air. Before closing it, he leaned down one last time. "Remember this, Liam," he said softly. "We're shaped just as much by the people who show up as by those who don't. Give people a chance to show up." Then he was gone, his robes trailing behind him as he walked toward the glowing gymnasium doors, leaving me with the envelope in my hands and a heart heavier and somehow lighter than before. I sat in the car long after the parking lot emptied, the last families driving away into the night. For the first time, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as invisible as I thought. Maybe even now someone was watching. The man who once promised to write my future wouldn't even return my calls. I stared at my phone screen, the voicemail timer blinking back at me. For the third time that week, I left the same hesitant message. "Hi, Principal Peterson. Just following up on the reference letter for UBC. The deadline's next week, and yeah, thanks. Hope to hear from you soon. My voice cracked embarrassingly at the end, so I just hung up, exhaling sharply. My tiny rented room above the cafe felt colder tonight, even with the faint hum of the coffee machines downstairs. The mattress sagged under my weight as I sat on the edge, hands tangled in my hair, staring at the diploma propped on the nightstand. It looked almost smug now, like some empty prize for a game I didn't remember signing up for. I kept trying to remind myself of Peterson's words in the car, that I was seen, that I mattered. But every unanswered email, every ignored message chipped away at that fragile hope. On instinct, I pulled up the school's website, scrolling through the latest news, and there it was. Maplewood Principal wins Provincial Excellence in Education Award. I clicked the link. Peterson smiled out at me from the page, arms slung confidently around the education minister, the gold medal glinting at his chest. The article called him a tireless champion of student success and highlighted his work mentoring extraordinary students like Liam Carter, whose triumph over adversity became a symbol of the Maplewood spirit. My stomach flipped. There it was, my name, my story sewn into his success like a ribbon, except no one had asked me if I wanted to be part of his display case. I slammed the laptop shut and buried my face in my hands. The next morning, Sophie Miller found me slouched against the gym doors, pretending to review notes I didn't need anymore. "You look rough, Liam," she said softly, sliding onto the bench beside me. Yeah, well, I forced a weak smile. She waited. Sophie always did that quiet patience that made you talk even when you didn't plan to. "It's Peterson," I finally mumbled. "He's just gone. No calls, no emails, no letter, nothing. But he's happy to toss my name around when the cameras are on." Sophie's eyes softened, the corners crinkling. I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. I frowned. "You knew." "We all knew, Liam," she said quietly. "Mark's always been good at shaping a story. We wanted to believe you'd be the exception." She squeezed my arm once briefly, like she was afraid to overstep. "I'm sorry." That afternoon, as I cut across the basketball court, David Singh called me over. "Hey, kid," he called, tossing a basketball toward the hoop and missing on purpose. "You skipping out on me now?" "Busy," I muttered. "Uh-huh." He leaned casually against the bleachers, arms crossed. "You know, I've been coaching long enough to tell when someone's carrying more than just a bad jump shot." Something in me cracked. "It's Peterson," I admitted. "He promised to help now. I can't even get him to look me in the eye." David exhaled, drumming his fingers on his arm. "You're not the first." His voice was low but steady. "But you might be the first to do something about it." That night, as I sat cross-legged on the futon, Emily Chen's message popped up. "Emily, hey, random question. Have you looked at Mark's public awards files?" Me, why? Emily, because you're in them a lot. A beat. Emily, want me to dig? I stared at the blinking cursor, heart hammering. Me, yeah, please. By midnight, my inbox pinged. A folder waited inside, neatly organized. News articles, school board submissions, donor letters, all of them painting a glittering picture of Peterson's leadership, and there, tucked between the headlines, was me over and over. My name, my story, my survival. But always in his voice. As I scrolled, the weight of it pressed down the recommendation letter he hadn't written. The scholarship, I was losing the face he put on every poster while leaving me in the shadows. Outside, the city quieted into the soft hush of early dawn. I rested my forehead against the window pane, the glass cool against my skin. David's words came back to me, firm and deliberate. You might be the first to do something about it. My breath fogged the glass as a flicker of clarity sharpened in my chest. Not just anger, not just betrayal. Resolve, when me or one of mum. I picked up my phone, hands steady now. Me to Emily, let's dig deeper. If they wanted a headline, I'd give them one they wouldn't forget. The thought pulsed in my mind as I paced the back alley behind the cafe. Sneakers scraping against the cracked pavement. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Emily again. Side doors open, her message read. When I slipped inside, the cafe was bathed in the soft glow of the emergency lights, the scent of coffee beans still hanging in the air. Emily sat at a corner table laptop, open, a halo of tabs crowding her screen. Her eyes darted up as I approached, mouth tugging into a tight but determined smile. Ready to see how deep this goes, she asked. I nodded, though my chest tightened at the thought. Emily spun the laptop toward me. Folders stacked neatly, award applications, media interviews, internal emails. She clicked into one thread, and the words jumped out like flashing signs: Liam Carter as a transformative student success story. Highlight of the principal's mentorship program, evidence of leadership impact. My throat dried. He built his entire application around you, Emily murmured. Every quote, every photo, you were the centerpiece. I sank into the chair, pressing my fingers into my temples, and all I asked for was a damn reference letter. Emily's jaw tightened. You deserve to decide how your story is used, not him. 20 minutes later, Sophie arrived, rain dripping from her coat, a thick folder cradled in her arms. I spoke to a few teachers, she said, breathless. Some off-the-record stuff, but it's consistent. Mark's done this before. He takes credit, moves up, leaves everyone else behind. She laid the folder on the table. He's just never had someone like you in the middle of it. David appeared soon after, nodding at us as he grabbed a chair. His presence was solid grounding. All right, he said, folding his arms. Let's figure out the play. We pored over everything. Emily mapped the timeline. Sophie highlighted patterns. David kept us focused. My mind spun between panic and focus, but for the first time I wasn't doing this alone. Emily tapped the keyboard, pulling up a fresh file. This just came through, she said, eyes narrowing. Recommendation letters from Mark. She scrolled, then froze. Oh, you're going to want to see this. She turned the screen. There it was, a glowing, heartfelt recommendation. For the nephew of a major school board donor? Not for me. My chest tightened as I read each line, a slow burn creeping under my skin. Sophie leaned over, reading quietly. He was never planning to help you, Liam. David let out a low whistle, shaking his head. We're not just talking about vanity anymore. This is pay to play. I stared at the screen, every muscle taut. For a moment, all the late-night shifts, the skipped meals, the exhaustion, it all pressed against me at once. Then something shifted. Not anger, not defeat. Clarity. We crafted the plan late into the night. Emily drafted a press packet, emails, quotes, letters, timelines. Sophie wrote a statement framing the issue with care, not bitterness. David rehearsed questions with me, walking me through calm, measured answers. This isn't revenge, David reminded me, his voice low. This is accountability. By the time the sun peeked over the city skyline, casting a pale gold across the cafe windows, we were ready. Emily leaned back, stretching her arms above her head. I've set the release for 3 p.m. Right before the gala, she smirked. Let's see how they like being part of the headline. I stepped outside into the cool morning air, pulling in a shaky breath. Vancouver stirred awake around me, delivery trucks rattling down the street. Joggers weaving through the dawn light, coffee shops setting out chairs. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Emily scheduled 3 p.m. sharp. You ready? For a heartbeat, I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I thought of Sophie's quiet encouragement, David's steady counsel, Emily's sharp fire. I thought of the version of me that had once eaten cold fries alone, believing no one saw. Me, yeah, I'm ready. By the time Mark stepped on stage, the story had already broken. I sat cross-legged on the worn carpet of Sophie's living room. My back pressed against the couch as the television flickered in front of us. Emily's laptop was open on the coffee table, a dizzying number of tabs blinking with live updates. David leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, his gaze steady but thoughtful. Sophie paced the room, chewing on a pen, her brow furrowed with a mix of tension and anticipation. Outside, the late afternoon, Vancouver's sky had turned to a cool slate gray. Somewhere across town, at one of the fanciest hotels in the city, the Provincial Awards Gala was in full swing, all polished marble champagne flutes and camera flashes. Emily glanced at her watch. It's time. She hit enter, and within seconds, the first story was live. Maplewood principal accused of exploiting student for personal gain. The headline blazed across the Gazette's website, followed by screenshots of the emails. The donor's nephew's letter, the testimonies Sophie had gathered, and a carefully written statement signed by me. My stomach clenched. I pulled my knees to my chest, heart hammering. David's voice broke through the noise. Look at that. On the television, a reporter from the local station appeared on screen, murmuring into her earpiece. Behind her, inside the ballroom, the camera caught Mark shaking hands. Beaming under the spotlights, his gold medal already draped across his chest. Then, as if on cue, the reporter straightened, her eyes lighting up as the alert hit her phone. She turned slightly, whispering to her crew, and the camera swung around. Showtime, Emily whispered. Inside the ballroom, Mark stepped up to the microphone. His hands spread wide in that signature, easy charm I'd seen 100 times in school assemblies. Good evening, everyone. His voice rang amplified through the room. It's an honor to stand here tonight among so many extraordinary leaders in education. He didn't get to finish. From the side of the room, a voice called out, Principal Peterson, can you address the recent accusations published this afternoon? The cameras turned, heads swiveled, murmurs rippled through the crowd like a gust of wind before a storm. Mark's smile faltered just slightly, a crack in the polished mask. I felt a pulse of adrenaline shoot through me. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him, almost. Back in Sophie's apartment, the room was filled with the soft ping of notifications, social media blowing up. News outlets picking up the story, students and parents posting their reactions. Emily tapped away furiously, tracking hashtags, replies, shares. Sophie finally sank into the armchair across from me, letting out a slow breath. You okay? She asked. I think so. I whispered, though, my hands were still shaking. David crouched beside me, resting a firm hand on my shoulder. Remember, he said quietly, you didn't make him do this. He did this to himself. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in the truth of that. As the gala broadcast continued, Mark shuffled his papers at the podium, trying to regain his footing. But the questions kept coming, the flashes, popping, the tension palpable. His voice wavered as he promised to address these concerns in due course. But the cameras were already losing interest, pivoting to the murmuring crowd. The restless journalists, the faces exchanging wide-eyed glances. Back at Sophie's, I sat forward, resting my elbows on my knees. I watched as the man who had built his career on stories like mine, stories he never fully owned, stumbled under the weight of his own making. Emily's phone buzzed again. More outlets picking it up, she reported, a faint grin tugging at her lips. It's everywhere. For the first time since graduation, I felt a strange stillness settle inside me. Not triumph, not rage. Peace. As the camera zoomed in one last time on Mark's face, caught between a frozen smile and a flicker of panic, I whispered to myself, we did it. And just before I could take another breath, Emily's voice cut through. I watched Mark freeze on stage, his smile faltering, and for the first time I felt something like peace. Mark called me that night, but this time I let it go to voicemail. I sat on the edge of my bedphone, buzzing on the nightstand, the screen lighting up over and over again. Mark Peterson. His name flashed with a persistence that only weeks ago would have sent me scrambling to answer. But now I just watched it ring, arms crossed, heart steady. The television played softly across the room, the local news looping clips from the gala. There was Mark framed under the provincial crest, the gold medal around his neck, his face frozen mid-speech as reporters peppered him with questions. Principal Mark Peterson faces allegations of exploiting student achievements for personal gain. I leaned back against the wall, letting the words wash over me. Sophie had texted earlier, a simple proud of you. David sent a thumbs-up selfie from the gym. Emily, true to form, sent a flood of screenshots, headlines, tweets, angry parent Facebook posts, even a meme or two. The city was buzzing, and at the center of it, for once, was a truth I had helped bring to light. The next morning, the fallout began. The school board issued a statement. We take these allegations seriously and have placed Principal Peterson on temporary leave, pending a full investigation. Parents demanded meetings. Local news vans parked outside Maplewood High. Teachers whispered in the hallways. Students flooded group chats with theories, jokes, and surprisingly, words of support. I kept my head down, slipping in and out of the school to clean out my locker, gathering the last scraps of a chapter that, for better or worse, had shaped me. Sophie found me by the front doors, her coat tucked around her eyes, tired but warm. You okay? She asked softly. I shrugged. I don't know yet. She gave a small smile. That's fair. Later that day, David called me out for coffee. We sat on a bench overlooking the seawall, steaming cups, warming our hands against the late spring chill. You kept your head, he said, nodding approvingly. Didn't go for blood, just the truth. That matters. I stared out at the water, the waves lapping rhythmically against the shore. He built me up just to leave me behind, Dave. David sipped his coffee. Some people collect stories like trophies, but you're not a trophy, Liam. You're a fighter. For a long moment, we sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after a storm. That night back in my room, I sat cross-legged on the floor. The lights dimmed, a rare stillness settling over me. The check from the teacher's scholarship fund sat on the windowsill next to the graduation card. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from the University of British Columbia's admissions office. My chest tightened as I clicked it open. We are pleased to inform you that you have been awarded an extended scholarship package. We recognize your exceptional perseverance and community impact. My breath caught. No mention of Peterson, no shadow hanging over it, just me, my work, my story, finally standing on its own. I rested my head against the wall, eyes closed. In the quiet, I thought of that younger version of myself, the one sitting in a parked car, eating cold fries, trying to believe the world could still surprise him. I thought about the teachers who stayed late, the coach who believed in me, the friend who sifted through data at midnight. And for the first time, I thought about tomorrow. I walked across the campus lawn, sunlight on my face, and for once I wasn't looking back. The breeze tugged at the edge of my jacket as I crossed the University of British Columbia's wide tree-lined quad. Late afternoon sun filtered through the leaves, casting shifting gold patterns on the pavement. Students hurried past with coffee cups and backpacks, laughter and conversation rippling through the air like music. And me, I was here, not as someone's project, not as a headline, but as a student with his own place, his own name. It had been 2 months since Mark's fall, 2 months since the school board's investigation ended with his resignation. A quiet press release and a polite but firm goodbye. 2 months since I'd packed up my room above the cafe, folded my old cap and gown, and stepped into a future no one had scripted for me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Sophie, how's day one? I smiled, thumbs moving quickly, me surreal, but good. Another ping. David, remember, gym membership, don't slack. I laughed under my breath. Typical. And finally, Emily sending a gif of fireworks exploding across the screen, followed by a simple, proud of you. I tucked the phone away, warmth curling in my chest. My people, my chosen family. As I wandered toward the student center, a flyer pinned to a bulletin board caught my eye. Student advocacy group protecting student voices, join us. I paused, fingers brushing the paper lightly. The words stirred something deep, a flicker of memory, a surge of recognition. Once I had been the kid, no one noticed the name tacked onto someone else's resume. Now here was a chance to stand up to help make sure no one else got folded into the background. A small smile tugged at my mouth. Maybe later I'd check out their meeting. I grabbed a coffee from the campus cafe and found a spot under an old maple tree, letting the rustle of the leaves settle into my bones. For the first time in years, I wasn't counting shifts or chasing approvals. I watched his students stream past, a girl juggling textbooks and a latte, a guy in headphones bobbing his head to music. A group crowded around a laptop planning something that made them laugh so hard one nearly fell off the bench. Life moving, ordinary, extraordinary life. I pulled out the graduation card I'd kept tucked in my backpack, fingers tracing the familiar signatures. It was worn now, edges fraying the ink a little smudged. But it was mine, not as a symbol for someone else's ambition, but as a reminder of where I'd come from and of the people who'd stood beside me when the cameras weren't rolling. A shadow fell across me, and I looked up to see a group of students smiling as they passed. One of them, a girl with bright blue hair, grinned and called out, "See you at the advocacy meeting." I blinked, startled, then laughed softly. "Yeah," I called back before I could think twice. "See you there." As they disappeared into the crowd, I felt the knot in my chest, the one I'd carried so long it had almost become familiar, finally loosen. I stood, brushed the grass off my jeans, and slipped the card back into my bag. There was a time when I sat alone in a parking lot, cold fries in hand, wondering if anyone even saw me. That moment of quiet loneliness became the spark for a journey I never expected. One that taught me the true power of standing up, not just for myself, but for others who've been overlooked. My story is just one of many across every school, workplace, or community. There are people quietly fighting battles we rarely see, and some, like me, learn that resilience and quiet strategy can overcome even the most unfair odds. The greatest lesson I carry is this: patience matters, but action matters more. You can be thoughtful without being silent. You can be kind without being passive. Thank you for taking the time to follow this journey. If this story resonated with you, leave a 1 in the comments and let us know. Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories of resilience, justice, and unexpected triumph. And if you have a story of your own, we'd love to hear it. You never know whose life it might change.